Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We are back on the Leviathan's dev server and we are having a look at some changes which are affecting vehicles that are already in War Thunder. So this isn't talking about the new vehicles, it's talking about the changes to specifically weaponry on aircraft in War Thunder. The fact is, every update now has a massive amount of additions to pre-existing vehicles, and this one is no different. So in this video, we'll cover them all so you can see what's going on. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe to the channel and also like the video. Let's get started. The first one is a really cool change for American vehicles and also a bunch of others that are across the board, which are also American vehicles. You can see something different on this F-15E, and it is the fact that it has access to a new AMRAM, the AIM-120C-5. Now, this is coming to a bunch of new vehicles in the game, but it's also coming to some old ones too. So the FA-18C Late, the F-15E, and also the F-15I RAM are all getting access to the AIM-120C-5, and this is a massive upgrade over the standard AIM-120A or B, depending on what country you are using. Now remember, this is the dev server, so the stats themselves may not be fully there, but the missile seems incredibly powerful, especially compared to what is already one of the best missiles in the game. So yeah, it's looking really good, and a lot of vehicles at the highest echelon are getting access to it. The F-15E also has a bit of its change to modifications. The modification for the AGM-130 has been moved to rank 3, so therefore you'll have to get through it in order to grind it out, and I think that's just because they've done this with the AIM-120, so you have to go right on it instead of just going straight down the list. It has so many air-to-air missiles nowadays, it is pretty nuts. Also, the Su-25s are getting a bit of a change. Basically, all of them are getting some differences happening in terms of their setup. So first of all, the separate bomb release from hardpoints 2, 3, 8, and 9 have been removed. So if you decide to run bombs on this thing, basically you won't be able to independently drop them. They'll have to drop in joules. And then also another part, which is a huge deal, especially for people who abuse these vehicles and using them in ground realistic. The rockets themselves, the launch sequence of the rockets has changed. So now the rockets are expended from the fuselage to the wingtip. So you'll actually fire the inner ones first, and then you'll fire the outer ones. So if you are a person who really enjoys using the 130Fs or uses the S250s, which, you know, most people do to overpressure vehicles, even if they don't hit them, which is kind of ridiculous. But anyway, what the rockets will do is now fire from the inside out instead of the outside in. So be careful when you're using them. You might blow yourself up. So the next setup is a bunch of Japanese changes, and mainly focusing around the D series, the D4s here, but also a bunch of other ones are getting some of the changes too. So the D4Y1, the D4Y2, and also the Y3, which are all very similar to each other, are getting a new bomb. They're getting a 500 kilo, so you don't just have to have access to the 250. You get this Navy Type number 50 Model 2 bomb, which I think is kind of nice. So one of the issues with this series of aircraft is they really don't have a lot of ordnance, and they're designed to kind of have some ordnance. So having access to an additional one is going to make it a lot better for this vehicle, and hopefully people will have a bit more fun with these vehicles. Another change that is coming in is actually for the machine guns. So the Type 92 machine gun specifically for Japan, the rate of fire has been increased from 600 to 700 rounds per minute. So this means that you'll actually be able to defend yourself a little bit better on the D4s, but also on other vehicles that also have it, such as the B6N1, which has a turret of it right here too. So at least, you know, you get a bit more protection. For the 37mm HO-203 cannon, which I'm pretty sure is one of the big donkey guns that is on one of these vehicles. There you go. Well, this is the 204, but the 203 37mm variant now has a practice shell in it, which is kind of hilarious. For some other vehicles, the Chinese ones, they are actually changing the JH-7A, the Q5L, and the JF-17. So all of these vehicles that you see before you had something they shouldn't have had. And this is kind of a standard across the board for many vehicles that you'll find out pretty soon. Basically, for the guided bombs on all three of these vehicles, there was a limitation on allowed bomb release of Mach 1, basically, or 1.01, and it was missing. So you could go way faster than that, and you could drop your bombs at ridiculous speeds miles away from the battlefield, which you shouldn't have been allowed to do. But that seems to be a common thing across. It says that it was erroneously missing, but it seems like a lot of vehicles had this problem. They've also changed slightly a bunch of Japanese bombs, 50 kilo, 100 kilo, and then also 500 kilos. All of them just have their weight slightly changed. Nothing's really going to matter there, if I'm honest with you, but there is something that means that you'll have to respade the zeros once again. The A6M2 for Japan and the one for China. Basically, what you find here, by the way, this one has one of the best market skins in the game. Thought I'd just show it to you. It's an origami island camo, which basically makes the zero look like it's made out of origami. Isn't that really cool? Pretty awesome. So what they've added to the A6M2 and also what they've added to the A6M2 for China is the ability to carry a 250 kilo bomb. So this will give it better setups in terms of CAS, so you don't just have to use this as a defensive fighting ground, you can also at the same time do a little bit more with it, which I think is actually pretty cool. Also, at the same time, they have changed a few things with the high-tier Soviets. You know how there was a few issues, I think is fair to say, with a lot of these vehicles and their ordnance? Well, guess what? They are actually getting slowly but surely balanced. First of all, the Grom 2, which is the guided bomb, which has the glide mechanics. There was not a limitation on the speed that you could release it. There's supposed to be a limitation on it of Mach 1.5, and it just didn't exist, because I'm guessing they just forgot about it. So now it's there, after however long this vehicle has been out. And then, guess what? The fun missile, you know, the one that we all like and the one that definitely exists and everybody just agrees definitely exists and there's absolutely no controversy around it at all. That's right, the KH-38MT and also the KH-38ML. Guess what? There wasn't a limitation. There was not a limitation on this missile of when it was allowed to release. So now there is a limitation in terms of the speed, which is Mach 1.5. So basically, you could just yeet this thing whenever you felt like, even though there was supposed to be a limitation there. So it's just another set of ordnance which was allowed to do what it wanted, and somehow it just was forgotten about again, which is not great. Wish that this would stop happening, and wish it would stop happening to a lot of these Russian vehicles. Now, when it comes to Japan as well, a bunch of other stuff got changed on them. So once again, just some more bombs which got their weights adjusted, such as the 800 kilo bombs, and also some others, such as the 500 kilo bombs, which are around. So it's just another one of those where they're making it so they are very close to real. It looks like they're changing a few light weights here and there from like 390 to 382 kilos. It's really not going to make a huge difference, but at least they're trying to be as accurate as possible. Now let's talk about the Mirages. So the F1C, the F1C 200, and then also the F1CT are going to get access to the FIMAT pod. Basically, this one is going to be used for ground ordnance, I'm pretty sure. It actually might be better if I just have a look at the F1CT, since that's more of kind of like the ground attacker plane, at least out of all of them. So these ones are going to get the FIMAT, which looks like it's not here, unless maybe I can find it. Nope. Oh, well, I might have to get the stuff. But yeah, they're going to get the FIMAT pod, and that will obviously help them with their CAS efforts, which generally should be pretty fun. And hopefully, kind of going forward, we can actually see it. Sometimes these pods kind of disappear and then reappear in other places, but it looks like it's not in the game yet. Maybe it will be in the game in a bit, but just understand they're getting it. The GR7 Harrier is also getting access to the pod, so there's also that, which is turning up. They've also changed some Italian bombers, the Z1007s. which they have actually added some bombs to it. Some AP bombs, the AP-160s, which have 60 kilos of explosive mass and actually not a bad amount of penetration. So you don't have to respade these things, don't worry. You don't have to get back into the tri-engines, but generally it's actually kind of nice that they're adding that stuff in. I generally think it's pretty fun. So the next one, the Ki-45 Tei, once again, just another Japanese vehicle getting a change. That seems to be the kind of setup. So this is the Hei, then you got the Tei, then you got the Ko, then you got the Ho. So wherever that one is it here? Yeah, there you go. The Ki-45 Tei. They've changed the amount of ammo that is on its 20 millimeters to 120 instead of 100. So therefore it can carry 240 rounds of 20 millimeter instead of 200, which is really nice. For the B5N2, they also added something pretty cool. You can mix and match your loadouts now. So you can bring 60 kilo bombs and then also 250s. So instead of like secondary armaments, you can at least take a bit of both, which I think is pretty awesome. And you can see here, this is basically what it's going to be like. And each of the bombs is different. You got the Model 2, then the standard one. So yeah, you can at least hit multiple targets instead of just kind of one. The A20G30, which I believe is the A20 for Russia. I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it is. I feel like there's so many of these. Yeah, the A20G30. So for some reason, this vehicle had a bomb sight. No idea why, but it did. Doesn't now, so that's gone, basically. And then also at the same time, the MiG-21 F-13, which is the Russian plane once again. So the one which doesn't really do a lot of ground pounding, the F-13. It used to have a CCIP for the rockets and the cannon on it. And guess what? They've now removed it. This is kind of like a common trend with a lot of these MiG-21s. They used to have access to a ton of systems, and now they're slowly being removed, which is kind of funny. So that, at least to me, shows that this one is going to be harder to ground pound with, but to be honest, you don't really ground pound with it anyway, because very limited in ordnance. In terms of vehicles as well, the secondary weapon additions to the game, the Canberras now have their secondary weapon set up there, which is really cool. Since, you know, they can kind of mix and match different loads if they want to, even though the 2 barrels is the funnest one. The Hamptons also have their secondary weapon menus sorted out as well. The Ju-288, which is probably the biggest one, and also the Z1007, BIS Series 3, and Series 5 also have these additions. So a lot of ordnance additions, a lot of changes to previous ordnance, but the main one, I think, which many people are going to be happy about, is, of course, the AIM-120C-5. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.
I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Warthunder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.